trade being one of the items that we usually document, one is for us to have what we call a future reference. Like, for example, if you want to know, to get to see how much you traded, how much you bought from a different country or from a particular supplier, you usually get to notice through the recordings. Also, if you want to understand how trade was done, maybe in the past times, you can also do so by the use of these documents. So that's when you'll be talking, that's when you talk of international trade documents. There are several international trade documents that are used depending on the type of trade that is being done. And in our case, we'll be looking at almost all the documents that are used in international trade, and we shall be looking at the document and we see its function and the purpose for that matter. So let's start by looking at this particular document. And in most cases, you know that international trade will involve two people. Mostly, that is the importer. And importer, this is a person who is buying items from a different country. And we have another person who will be involved in that trade, that is the exporter. The exporter is a person who is selling to another country. And the documents that are prepared in this particular case are usually used to protect these two parties who are involved in this trade. We have several documents that are used there, but I'll just list some of them. Number one is the bill of exchange. Number two is the bill of lading. Number three is the letter of credit. Number four is a certificate of origin of goods. Number five is the inspection certificate. Number six is the packaging weight list. Number seven is consumer invoice. Number eight is insurance documents. So let's start with the first one. That is the bill of exchange. And when we talk of a bill of exchange, we are saying that this is an agreement signed by the buyer of the goods that he will pay the seller a certain sum of money on a specified future date. And each international trade transaction generates its own bill of exchange, and the bill is usually drawn by the exporter and sent to the importer. And once the importer accepts the bill of exchange, he returns it to the exporter. The importer is now legally bound to make payments, and the bill is legal evidence of the contractual obligation for payment. And for a bill of exchange is a negotiable instrument. So let us first of all understand this thing that we are calling the bill of exchange. Assuming you are a trader doing business in international trade, and let's say as a result of your trading activities, you are buying some goods from Guangzhou, China, from, let's say, a company called Guangzhou Limited. In this case, you are the importer and Guangzhou is the exporter. Sometimes you buy from a company, but you promise them that you shall pay later. So that with that particular case, sometimes there is a need to have a binding agreement between the exporter and the importer. And one of the things that you can do to show that there is an agreement between the two of you is coming up with a bill of exchange. This bill of exchange is a document that shows that the importer agreed to pay the exporter a certain sum of money. And this document usually indicates the amount of money to be paid and the time when it shall be paid. And we say this document is negotiable. And when you talk of a document that is negotiable, it means that it can be transferred from one person to another. Like, let's take an example. If Guangzhou Limited wants money very immediately, or emergencies cash, and they don't want to borrow, they can use this bill of exchange. They can sell this bill of exchange to either a bank or another person who will give in return some money. And when that one happens, we say that we have negotiated the bill of exchange. That means it can be transferred from one person to another so as they can get the money. So that's when we talk of the bill of exchange. I'm hoping you can understand it. Then these bill of exchange, they are of several types. And let us now see what are these, what are the types of the bill of exchange. Number one is what we call a banker's acceptance or a bank bill of exchange. And this is a bill of exchange accepted by a bank. This is where an exporter draws a bill of exchange on an
Please, sir.
importer, and the bill is accepted by the importer's bank, and this is called a banker's acceptance. A bank earns a fee for banker's acceptance since it takes on the credit risk. So when we talk of the banker's bill of exchange, this is where, like I had given an example, assuming it is a person by the name Kinuthia who had gone to buy some goods in Guangzhou, China. And this particular person, we say that because he's importing, he's the importer. And he has told the Guangzhou company, I'll pay you. But the Guangzhou wants to be assured that some payments will be made. So what they do, because mostly the payments will be made by the bank, they will write a bill of exchange to Kinuthia's bank. So the bank will accept to pay Guangzhou Limited when the payments falls due. And when that one happens, we say that one that is a bank's a bank's bill of exchange. Why is it a bank bill of exchange? Because the bank has offered itself to pay in case Kinuthia does not pay, or from Kinuthia's deposits. So that's when you talk of the banker's bill of exchange. The other one is what we call the cream bill. When talk of a cream bill, this this is a bill of exchange that is not accompanied by any other documents that are generated in international trade transaction. Yes, sometimes a bill of exchange is accompanied by other documents which act as evidence of the trade that happened between the importer and exporter. When a bill is not accompanied by other documents, it is called a clean bill of exchange, meaning that there are no other documents that accompanies it as evidence. The other one is what we call documentary bill of exchange. Documentary bill of exchange. Yes, when we talk about a documentary bill of exchange, it is a bill of exchange accompanied by other documents generated in international trade transaction. Yes, when you talk of the documentary bill, you're saying that it's a bill of exchange that has other documents, that is accompanied by other documents which act as evidence. Like, for example, when you talk of a documentary bill, this is a bill of exchange which could be accompanied by things like a receipt, things like the insurance notes, the insurance documents, and others. So when we have a bill of exchange accompanied with other documents, we call it a documentary bill of exchange. Another bill of exchange is what we call side. Say that this is a bill of exchange that can be presented by the holder of the bill to the importer for payment on due before maturity. It is also called the demand bill. So when you talk of the site bill, in simple terms, it's a bill of exchange paid on site. That's why we have it being called a site bill. And we are saying that it's a site bill because it can be paid whenever it is presented for payment to the importer. And this can be any time before the maturity of the bill of exchange. When talk of the maturity of a bill of exchange will have some duration when it is supposed to be paid in fully, to be paid out fully. Like, for example, if we have an agreement that I will pay the exporter, that is Guangzhou Limited, on, let's say, 20th of July. 20th of July is the maturity date. And with the site bill, it can be cashed in anytime between now and 28th of July. Doesn't talk over a site bill or a demand bill. Then we have another one, which is a usance bill. Usance bill. We say that this is a bill of exchange that can be presented by the holder of the bill to the importer for payment only on maturity date. For payment only on the maturity date. And you say that if the bill states that the importer has to pay the bill or only after specified period, let's say 30 days, the importer will make payment only on the due date. So when you talk of a usance bill, this is a bill that is payable only on a specific date. Like, for example, the one that I had given an example, you agree with the exporter, let's say Guangzhou Limited, that you shall pay them on 23rd of July. You can, for a usance bill, you can only pay on 23rd of July. Nothing, no other day. It is on 23rd of July. That's the only time you can pay for that. It doesn't talk over the usance bill. Then those are now the classifications of bills of exchange. Let us now look at another document that is a bill of lading. It is also called BOL or B stroke L. Um, a bill of lading, it is an evidence of the contract between the carrier or the transporter and the exporter to deliver the goods to a designated party, that is the importer or any other named person at a specified designation in the importer's country. So when we talk of a bill of lading, you know that most of the countries are usually in different locations or distances or localities, um, in between, whereby where the importer and the exporter are. So, like for example, you shall find that in some instances, like the example that I've given on Guangzhou, the Guangzhou Limited is in China and I am in Kenya. Those are two different people in different locality. And if I bought some electronics from Guangzhou, for them to reach to me, they need to be transported. And at times, the exporter is not the one who is transporting goods to me. So therefore, they will have to give an exporting company or a transporting company to bring the items to me. So in that particular case, so that there can be some evidence that the company really gave me the goods transport, gave someone the goods to transport to me, they will have a document called the bill of lading. The bill of lading that is between the person exporting and the transporting company. Doesn't talk of the bill of lading, and it usually shows that goods have been transported by someone to a specific area or locality in a certain geographical area. So that's when we talk of fat. So, that's when we talk of the bill of lading. The other one is so there are different types of bills of lading. Like the bill of exchange, there are several classifications of bills of lading, and they will be discussed as follows. Number one, type of a bill of lading is what we refer to as clean bill. Clean bill. When talk of a clean bill, this is a bill of lading whereby goods received by the carrier company are undamaged and are in good condition. So if, for example, I want to transport some mobile phones from, let's say, China, Guangzhou, China, to Kenya, and those goods are in good conditions. At the time I've given the transporter or the shipping company, I'll give them, or I'll issue them with a clean bill, meaning that those goods are in good condition. Number two, we have what we call a full bill. A full bill. This is a bill of lading if the goods are received in a damaged condition. And this, or like for example, if I was importing, let's say, motor vehicle parts or glass, and those glass are broken, the transporter or the shipping company will note, yes, I've given them some goods, but these goods that they will be transporting are not in the correct state. They are broken, and therefore they will give me what we call a full bill of lading. Number three is what we call on-board bill of lading. On-board bill of lading. You see that? The carrier or the shipping company usually issues a bill of lading after the goods have been loaded onto the ship. Yes, this is when talk of an on-board bill. This is where the carrier or the shipping company only issues a bill of lading when the goods are on the ship. Yes, this is to show that if the goods are not in the ship, it means that the company will not issue the bill of the bill of lading. But once the goods have been put in the ship, that's when the bill of lading will be issued. The other one is what we talk of received for shipment bill. Received for shipment bill. This is when the carrier or the shipping company issues a bill of lading on receipt of goods, but before loading has commenced. Yes, sometimes the shipping company, once they have received the goods that they are supposed to transport from area 1 to area 2, they can issue what you call received for shipment bill. This means that the goods have been received for shipment, but they have not been shipped yet. So we're going to talk of received for shipment bill. The other one is what you call the straight bill. The straight bill, or what you call the consignment bill. This is where the bill of lading usually mentions a specific party, usually mention a specific party or the importer to whom the goods will be delivered to. Yes, like for example, Kinuthia imports goods from Guangzhou, China. So, and the goods will be transported to him by DHNL. So, once the DHNL accept to take the goods, they will note clearly that we are transporting these goods from Guangzhou, China to Kinuthia, who is in Kenya. When that one happens, we'll be talking of a bill of exchange that specifies whom they are, the goods are being transported to, and then that's when you talk of a straight bill of lading. The other one is what you call the order bill of lading. The order bill of lading. This is where the exporter may not want the title of goods to pass to the importer when he holds the document. Therefore, the bill of lading states that the goods are made deliverable to the exporter himself or the shipping company or the order of the importer. So this is when we talk of a bill of lading whereby um, the goods have not yet been passed to the importer. Like for example, you are importing phones for Techno company, and the recipient who will receive these particular goods is still Techno company. So in such a case, even if the importer was an individual who wanted some Techno phones, but it's a Techno which has imported from, let's say, China to Kenya. In that particular case, we shall be talking of um, a bill of exchange, which is bill of lading, which is called order bill. The other type, the last, the second last bill of lading is what we call port to port bill of lading. So when talk of port to port bill of lading, this is a bill of lading where issued where goods have been transported by more than one carrier until they reach the importer's country. Yes, like for example, when we talk of goods being transported to Uganda, and these goods are coming from a country like India through the sea. So For them to reach to Uganda, these goods must go to via different ports. And let's assume these goods will be transported from from India to Uganda via sea. Then from the sea, they will be transported via railway or via road. And then after transporting them via road, they will be taken to the Indian Ocean. They will be transported by water again. Then from there, they will be transported by road to, let's say, a place like Entebbe in Uganda. You can see these particular goods have been transported by various vessels. One is a ship that transported them from India to Kenya through the Indian Ocean, and later on they have been transported by road from, let's say, Mombasa to uh, let's say Kisumu or Lake Victoria, and then across the Lake Victoria they have been transported by another vessel. You can see. So for those particular cases, from Mombasa to port of let's say Kisumu, they will be given a bill of lading. From Mombasa to India, they were given another bill of lading. So that's on top of port to port bill of lading. Then the last item is what we call the airway bill of lading. The airway bill of lading. When we talk of the airway bill of lading, this is a bill of lading that is issued when goods have been transported by air. You know, sometimes we import some commodities by air, like when you talk of the transportation of perishables. This one is mostly done by the air. So when you're transporting, let's say, goods from Kenya to Europe via air, you will issue all the transporter, let's say the Kenya Airway or British Airways, will issue to the importer, to the exporter, what we call an airway bill of lading. Why? Because the goods are being transported via air. So that's when we talk of airway bill of exchange. The other document that we shall be looking at is a letter of credit. A letter of credit. You see that a letter of credit is an undertaking given by the importer's bank acting upon the request of the importer that it will make payment to the exporter to the exporter to the exporter at a certain particular time, So when talk of the letter of credit, we are talking of a certain an undertaking or an assurance given by the importer's bank. Let's take an example. I am the one who is importing. I, as Kinuthia, I am importing from Rese Guangzhou Limited, and I don't have cash to pay now. So what I can do, I can just request my bank to commit itself or to act as a guarantor that it shall pay the exporter when this particular amount shall fall due. That's when we talk of a letter of credit. It is a commitment by the importer's bank that the exporter will be paid. That's when we talk of a letter of credit. Let's talk of types of letters of credit. And number one is what we call a clean letter of credit. When talk of letter of credit, this is these are letter of credit that is issued by the bank, or that is issued by the bank without any other supporting documents. Without any other supporting documents, we call it a clean letter of credit. So it means that there is no other supporting document to support that the trade really happened. So doesn't talk of it being a clean letter of credit. Number two is what we call a documentary letter of credit. You see that? This is a letter of credit that must be supported with other documents, or must be supported with other documents relevant to the international trade. Yes, when we talk of documentary letter of credit, we are talking of a letter of credit that is supported with other documents. A good example of a documentary letter of credit, this is where we are talking of things like you want to commit yourself, and you are also attaching other document to support that really some trade took part during a particular period of time, unlike the clean letter of credit where there is no other document. Number three is what we call the fixed letter of credit. The fixed letter of credit. When talk of a fixed letter of credit, this is where the limit gets reduced when the bill of exchange are presented to the exporter for payment. Yes. When talk of a fixed letter of credit, we are talking of a letter of credit whereby the limit for which the letter of credit covers gets reduced as the bill of exchange are presented. Like, for example, you present a bill of exchange of 600,000 shillings, but you reduce it, you present it uh, as a 400 by the bank. This means the limit has also been reduced. Um, then we have what we call transferable letter of credit. Transferable letter of credit. This is a letter of credit that can be transferred to a third party. Remember, it was issued by the importer's bank to the exporter, the importer's bank to the exporter. So when the bank now transfers this to another party, a third party, that's when we talk of a transferable letter of credit. Then we have another one called untransferable letter of credit. Untransferable letter of credit. This is a letter of credit which cannot be transferred at all. It cannot be transferred at all. So it cannot be transferred to the third party. That's when you talk of untransferable letter of credit. Untransferable letter of credit. Um, let's now go to the fourth document. This is very important when you're dealing with international trade. We have what we call the certificate of origin of goods, what we talk of COO, the certificate of origin of goods, COO. You see that this is an instrument or a document that establishes where the goods have been imported from into a country. And when talk of the certificate of origin of goods, this is a certificate issued from the country where the goods have been sourced from. Let's take an example. you have imported some motor car from a country, let's say Japan. When you are importing your motor car from Japan, you'll be issued with a certificate from Japan. This is talking of the recordation of goods. This is when you talk of the certificate of origin of good. It shows the country of origin where these goods were imported from. That's when you talk of the certificate of origin. We have two categories of these certificates of origin. Number one is what we call preferential certificates of goods. And this one, it extends the tariff concession. For example, um, if Kenya and Uganda have trade agreements, that particular COO will also be part of that. Will be called will observe the terms of that agreement. Yeah. Number two is what we call non-preferential certificates of origin. For these non-preferential certificates of origin, it does not give any tariff concession, but it gives uh, an evidence of origin. You remember the first one also goes in line with all the tariff concession. You remember tariffs is another name for tax. Any agreement that were there for taxation, it will be part and parcel of it. But non-preferential, there is nothing like such. So that's when we talk of the certificate of origin. Number five, we have what we call the inspection certificate. The inspection certificate. When you talk of an inspection certificate, you say that this is a document issued by independent third party stating that the goods have been inspected and conform to the quality specification and or any other contractual terms. Yes, before a country imports a commodity, they must first of all have some predetermined specifications that will be desirable for any item that has been imported into the country. That's why if you have ever you've ever traded with horticultural products in Kenya, not all horticultural products will go to the European markets. The European markets have set the standards for the horticultural product, not everything that can be consumed there. For it to be allowed to go to the European countries, they must conform to certain standards. And that's when you talk of they should be the certificate of uh, the certificate of inspection must be issued once the goods uh, have reached the standards. The other one is what we call the packing list. The packing list. This is a list that shows the goods that are in a container or the goods have been imported into the country. Okay, so in talk of the inspection, the packaging list, it shows what is in the container. You know, most of the imports are done using the containers. So a price list will show uh, the exact quantity, how much, what is their value that has been imported into the country. The other document is what we call the consular invoice. Consular invoice. We say that this is an invoice that usually describes the goods being transported. A consular invoice usually describes the goods which are being transported from one country to another. And in through this consular invoice, the exporter authenticates the accuracy of the invoice. Yes, the exporter will still have approved uh, the accuracy of an invoice. And you know what an invoice? An invoice is a document that is issued when you buy on credit. So this one. If there was someone who had bought goods on credit, so the exporter will authenticate that the actual amount that we have billed you is correct, and the actual amount doesn't talk of them. The consular invoice. The other one is called insurance documents. The insurance documents. You know that when goods are being transported from one region to another, there are dangers or perils that they are likely to suffer from. So now caution the to caution the uh, the importer from the risks, they usually take what we refer to as the insurance cover, such that if the goods are destroyed in the process of transporting them from one region to another, the person will be compensated by the insurance. And for you to transport goods in an international trade, they must be insured. Otherwise, you cannot get the goods. Um, you cannot transport the goods. Um, you cannot transport the goods from one area to another. That's when we talk of that. So that's when we talk of the documents used in international trade. So let's now see, why do we need the documents in international trade? Why do we need the documents in international trade? Number one is that the document acts as evidence of past transaction in international trade. A minute, please. A minute, please. Sorry for that interruption. There I was interrupted somewhere. So this is called learning from home. It has its challenges. So we are looking at why do we need this particular document for international trade. And I was saying that one, the documents act as evidence of transaction that have taken place. So if you want to show that really some transaction took place, you usually give out the documents given out. So they act as evidence of a trade that took place. Another reasons why the documents must be there is for taxation purposes. When the revenue authorities of different countries are taxing the imports uh, into the country, they usually base that one based on the documents presented. So the documents can be used for that. Then the other one is for the quality purposes. Um, Sometimes the document are used or are used by the standards, the standardization companies, so as they can be able to confirm that the quality that the goods have been able to be in the correct quality, or the state standards have been met. Like in Kenya, we have the KEBS, which usually check the standards of or the quality of goods which have been imported into the country. So KEBS for a case of Kenya can check that whether the goods have met the quality that have been specified. The other one is that these particular documents can be used for budgeting purposes. Like for example, you want to import a certain commodity, and you don't know the actual price of this particular commodity. You can use the documents from past tradings, and you can be able to budget in the amount of goods that you'll be able to import, and how much will you pay for that particular goods. The other one is that they can be used when resolving document disputes. Yes, documents are good because when the disputes arises between the trading partners, they can use the documents as an evidence, as an evidence which will be used in order to settle the disputes. Like for example, if it is it's a dispute based on the payments, and someone says he will not pay, you can use the document maybe to arbitrate on the payments, and from the documents you can be able to come up with the amicable solution on how much should be paid based on the records that are there, so they can be used when settling disputes, more so relating to payments. Another use of these particular documents is that they can be used for transportation purposes. Yes, when you are transporting the goods, sometimes you transport goods like the bill of lading. You transport goods to a client or to a place you don't know. But when you have the documents, they will specify the area that you're supposed to take the goods, and the contact person to whom you shall deliver the goods to. And with that particular record, you'll be able to have a smooth transition or transportation of goods from a certain area to another. The other one is that they also help someone to enter into a certain territory or to a certain country. Without some documentation, you cannot be allowed to get into a country when transporting goods. Like for example, you are transporting salt, let's say from Kenya to Tanzania, and you get to the border. When the border patrol police will get to you at maybe Namanga border, they will ask you for the evidence that you are really transporting salt to Namanga. So what will you give as evidence? The documents. So that's when you talk of the use of document for the purposes of allowing someone to move from one area to another. So that marks the end of the topic, that is the documents used in international trade. So for your case, you are now supposed to